briefly, some people, they don't need employment authorization in the U.S. Maybe they're not working, they just in the U.S. for other reasons, like they're tourists visiting family or just visiting sites in the U.S. It could be that they're students, they're not working and just studying, although some students may work. It just depends. They are authorized to work only under certain circumstances, like on campus and in the field of their studies once they're able in CPT and OPT. But then the other way, and there are of course people who come to the US specifically to work. They don't always have an employment authorization, rather, they have an employment based visa that authorizes them to work. So the rest of people, and a lot of my clients, they get a work permit when they're applying for some sort of benefit. For example, maybe it's someone who married a U.S. citizen and now they're applying for a green card based on that marriage, or it could be someone who applied for asylum, for protection in the U.S. and their case is pending. Sometimes it could only be also be in a defensive scenario where someone in the US is without status and they've been in the US for 10 years, for instance, and they were arrested by immigration and now they're in immigration proceedings. They need to apply for some sort of relief, and in certain circumstances, they could be eligible for something called cancellation of removal if they have a qualifying relative and that relative experiences hardship. So I just want to talk to you briefly about how to read that employment authorization card, because some of my clients are telling me, like, attorney, why do you need to see my work permit before the consultation? Or some are surprised, like, wow, you already knew all of this from work authorization. Work authorization actually gives me a lot of information. For instance, a typical work authorization, it would have a name and last name, and then it would have something called a USCIS number. USCIS number and A number are the same things. What A number is essentially a file, just like this. For instance, it's a file folder. Every immigrant, once they have a case, there is a folder that's created for them and it has a number. That's what A number is. And it's just a way for government to find, where your information is located. Also here it says category. So I would be able, as an attorney, to determine what is the status of that person, sometimes based on the category that their employment authorization is issued in. For instance, if it would say C09 here, that means this person is applying for adjustment of status, and it could be any type of adjustment status. C10 would be somebody who's applying for cancellation of removal. C8 would be somebody who's applying based on their asylum and their issued work permit based on that category. The next one would be the card number. That would actually be the case number. So once the person applies, they get a receipt stating, thank you, we received your notice, this is your number, this is the date when we received the case. So that number would be there. And again, this is something that, for instance, I could look up. Online and see when it was approved. Same with A number, to an experienced attorney, it would give a lot of information. Sometimes before I even speak to a person before the consultation, what I do, I check the A number with EOIR hotline to see if there is possibly a removal order. And you wouldn't believe it, but many attorneys, they don't do that. And that's when you can get, in a lot of trouble. And not to mention, a lot of people, there are some people who are notarios, or in Russian community, they're called paralegals. So the paralegal is somebody who is legally helping an attorney. In Russian community. It's referred to somebody who is essentially a notario and, just doing this work illegally. But anyway, so in many situations, I came across cases where whoever was handling the case didn't check whether the case has an immigration order of removal. And that led, as you can imagine, to really bad consequences. Like one of the clients that I've seen in detention, we were able to reopen his case, but he had an attorney, and his attorney didn't check the A number. It was as easy as just look, with his A number, look at the EIR hotline and see whether there is a removal. And it wasn't done, so they just filed a spousal petition, and instead of getting an approval at the interview, this person was arrested. Luckily, we were able to reopen, but the case and get him released. But it's not something that I would recommend someone to get detained by ICE and spend time in immigration detention. So that's why it's important for me to see any kind of employment authorization that you may have had, so I can tell what's going on. Next one would be country of birth, which a lot of times, sometimes it would not be. So a lot of times it would be the country of nationality. In some situations is not. For instance, people who were born in USSR, some of them were born in Russia, but really now are citizens of Ukraine and so forth. And same with Arab countries, I have a lot of people who were born in Saudi Arabia, but they are not nationals of Saudi Arabia. So, but it's important, it's good to know what is the place of birth of that person. Then in terms of condition, generally this would be none for most people. That means they can work at any time. Most of the time you see that it doesn't say none. It's for students. Like, for instance, it would say only 20 hours, or it's limited. So date of birth, sex, this would be a fingerprint here. And when was it, this employment authorization became valid, and when does it expire? Just to clarify, employment authorization may actually become invalid before the expiration date. For instance, the person got issued an employment authorization card, went to the interview, got a green card approved, and then their work permit is actually invalid, even though it says that, it's still valid. And same with the person who got it issued, went to the interview, got denied. The minute the case is denied, the work authorization is no longer valid. So it may say that it's valid, but that person is no longer authorized to work. So, well, that's about it about the employment authorization today.